Okay, so it says because of the differences in rising and falling edge delays, the pulses will be shortened by 1.5 ticks per piston repeater. So the pulse is coming in. Sometimes you need to do this sort of thing, don't you? So we've got 12 ticks here. So we've got there 6, right? So we've got 24 ticks there. So that's 2.4 seconds. So do about half a second. A bit longer. So yeah, it's just useful to sometimes just see how it goes through the thing. But anyway, so the right pulse will be shortened by 1.5 ticks per piston repeater. That's interesting. I still don't quite get my head around that. Pulses will be shortened by 1.5 ticks. So if I send this a 3-tick pulse, funnily enough, what does that mean? Does it mean that if I give this a 1.5 tick pulse, like a stone button, I'm pretty sure. If I got the thing with the button wrong, because this is the thing, right? If the pulse is too short, if I gave this a 1-tick pulse, yeah, I mean it would still work, wouldn't it? Because the block will go above it, even though it'd leave it on the way back. But you can see as soon as the button comes out, it's giving it that decent length. And I think what it's trying to say is so when we say the 1.5 delay rising edge, we're talking about the moment when this final mechanism activates. And the reason why we don't take into account the delay of torch turning on and off, because it's not turning on and off, it's just remaining in the same state. The fact that it can now transfer over to this dust isn't really relevant. So we're only looking at the extension of the piston, and that's why we've got the sort of piston stats for the piston repeater. Okay, so what I wanted to do as well is to keep on thinking about these things that we built in the last few episodes. What's going on here? Yeah, there was something a little extra in this, and I'm going to come back to it at some point as well. But I've got an instant repeater set up here, so we'll carry on doing more instant repeater stuff. Try and get more and more hang of this, and then also I'm going to move and talk about the one thing that is sort of perhaps the missing piece to this sort of puzzle is the actual having the clocks. And I think once I've got the clocks, I'm going to put some of the basic clocks in this section probably, and then it'll be a good moment to talk about, and hopefully after all that, everything will become clearer. That's the goal, right? Okay, so we have another setup. Okay, so let's begin with the dust. We'll do it in a. Yeah, I'll start the setup about here. Yeah, I'll just do it like here. What's the width of this? It's about 5 wide. So okay. So let's begin. And we'll put a block here. And we have a piston here. And here is the output. So yeah, this is the difference between the instant inverter and the instant repeater. I probably should have done the repeater first, but the thing is, right, there's so many different sections. It doesn't really matter. They're all going to be in the same ballpark here. So anyway, this just helps to clarify a few things. And that is basically it, I believe. So I'm just going to... Well, that looks really odd. Was that what I was going for? It actually looks like it is not. It is. What's the delay of this? 0. This is really what's going to help me to understand it. I think this one, because this is super. Oh bollocks! This is quite confusing, but again, I haven't read the instructions yet. Okay, so behavior of the rising edge. So as we turn it on, while the input is off, the block of redstone keeps the lowest sticky piston activated by connectivity. So that makes sense, right? Not really, actually. I can see what it's saying though. It just needed a block update, I think. I mean, I wouldn't say it doesn't. Yeah. Well, it is. It's working now. It must be something to do with block updates. Again, I haven't got to that section yet though. Okay, so. But regardless of that fact, I've still got this sort of concept of there being a taxi cab distance of 2 away, and I think that's quite a good concept to have. So while the input is off, which is obviously off, the block of redstone keeps the lower sticky piston activated by connectivity. When the input turns on, the upper sticky piston, as you might imagine, activates, begins to extend the block of redstone. The instant the block of redstone starts moving, see, this is what I wanted, right? The instant the block of redstone starts moving, the lower sticky piston deactivates. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking, right? This makes so much more sense now. Yeah, as soon as this, you see, as soon as this piston starts retracting, you see, as soon as this piston, the reason why this dust goes off immediately, because this is no longer, this becomes something else, right? It immediately changes its state, right? But it looks like it doesn't actually turn this on until the block of redstone is right back in place. So basically, anytime this block is moving, this redstone block, it's not actually Yeah, that's a weird way to say. Anytime it's moving, it's just not a block of redstone. It could be, it's just nothing. It's just like, could be any block which is not conductive, basically. That's basically what it's trying to say. Okay, so yeah. So let me just go back. So the instant the block of redstone starts moving, the lower sticky piston deactivates, right? I see why. And then it's above it, so it goes back, yeah. The instant the block of redstone starts, let's go back into this rising edge behavior again. So, and it's trying to say there's it just says circuit delay none, so I assume that the circuit delay on both rising and falling edges is none. That's why it's just not specifying, right? So the instant the block of redstone starts moving, the lower sticky piston deactivates and begins to retract this block, right? Yeah. The reason and begins to retract block A, which is that block, yeah. The reason the upper piston is extending. Sorry, wait. The instant the block of redstone starts moving, the lower sticky piston deactivates and begins to retract block A. The reason the upper piston is extending. Oh, right, yeah. Oh, yeah. I got it. Yeah, because obviously if there was no block here, it wouldn't extend. This provides the weak power from here. Yeah. Okay. So it begins to retract the block, and this block is the reason it's extend. Man, you see, this is why I couldn't quite understand it, because there's several things going on here. Okay, the reason. The lower sticky piston begins to retract block A. The reason the upper piston is extending. This turns the upper sticky piston's extension into a zero tick extension retraction, the insta drop. Okay. The sticky piston drops its grip on the block and leaves it behind when it retracts. Yeah, and then it extends again. I see. Yeah, that's... Oh, I've got it. I've completely got it now. One thing I don't get... Yeah, so this is powering it through the taxicab 2 difference. As soon as this moves, it deactivates this block. As soon as this block moves, and this all happens immediately, right? Because you're not taking into account the length of the actual piston extension and retraction. As soon as this block moves, yeah, because it's always you're taking something. The thing I've really realised is that you're always taking this away. You're always taking something away to create that very short delay or zero delay time. And right, because you're powering, what you're doing, right, is you're powering this piston and deactivating this piston simultaneously. And what's happening... Alright, the sticky piston drops its grip on the block and leaves it behind when it reacts, leaving the block of redstone above the lower sticky piston and powering the output. All of this happens instantly in the same tick, affecting and allowing a rising edge to pass through the circuit with no delay. Now that the block of redstone is above the lower sticky piston, the lower sticky piston extends again, and 2 ticks later, block A is back in position, causing the upper sticky piston to extend again, ready to retract block A when the signal turns off. Man, there is quite a lot to it though, isn't there? So we're going to go through it again. Okay, so I almost want to have like a list of steps, right? because there's just so many things going on here. Okay. So we'll start with rising edge on this guy. Okay, so number one. Okay, we know the input is off because we're talking about the rising edge. It's going to be hard to actually do this. Yeah, I'm not sure this is the best way to do it, actually. It's best to just try and understand it, I think. So once we turn it on, this piston begins to extend. As soon as this piston extends, so on the same tick as this piston extends, because literally this moves on 0 ticks, right? This will retract. As soon as that happens, which is the same tick, there's things all on the same tick. This piston extracts. This extends. This piston retracts, and this piston retracts, all on the same tick. That's basically what it's saying, isn't it? Yeah. So it's a 0 tick extension retraction. Okay. So it allows the rising edge, the act of turning it on, and then now it's above here, it simply extends again. And it says, and 2 ticks later, block A is back in position. It's funny it says that because I keep on hearing about this 0.5 ticks supposedly for the causing the upper sticky piston to extend again. Okay, so basically the idea is 3 things happen, right? 3 things happen. 1, top piston extends. 2, bottom piston retracts, and 3, top piston retracts. That really is the whole point of this, right? Of a sheet. So the 0 tick extraction retraction. So yeah, that deactivates this. To the bottom piston retracts. That depowers this, causing it to retract in the same tick. So that's the kind of core thing, isn't it? Yeah. And then once it gets there, it simply powers it again. And the whole point of this is the top piston I wonder why the output gets powered there. All of it happens instantly. But how does the falling edge get all the way... I mean, the rising edge get all the way through? Top piston extends. Bottom piston retracts. You see, that really zooms into position, that redstone block. What it's to do with, in fact, is that as soon as... Here's the thing, it doesn't even matter what the piston head does, right? As soon as it is extended, even a millimeter, that block is there. There's no way... You can really... It really zooms in, doesn't it? I bet if I ran this at a super slow speed, that it really seems to really get in there fast. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's not like that. That does not get in there fast. I mean, I'll be waiting a while. Yeah, you see, if I was powering here, that would not be 0 tick. The only reason this works is because of depowering. But anyway, let's focus on this still. I think that's basically it. And then basically the final steps would be bot piston extends. Two ticks later, back in position. Yeah. It's funny that it says 2 ticks later is at this stage. So we'll just do it again. So what you can tell from this, I think, yeah, you can tell that this is taking some time to get there. So yeah. Okay, I mean that makes sense, right? Okay, let's move on to the falling edge. When the input turns off, the upper sticky piston begins to retract. So that will immediately deactivate this, right? Immediately cutting off power to the output. Yeah. Similar, very similar to that actually. Well, it's the opposite, isn't it? But the question is, when it says, here's the thing, right? It says, when this begins to retract, it immediately cuts off power to the output. The question is, when this begins to retract, does it immediately give power to the output? That's the question. I'm not 100% sure, because there was something to talk about this whole repeater section. Anyway, I will clarify it. When the input turns off, the upper sticky piston begins to retract the block of redstone, immediately cutting off power to the output, effectively allowing the falling edge to pass through the circuit with no delay. Yeah. While the block of redstone is moving, the lower sticky piston deactivates. Yeah. But then activates again when the block of redstone stops moving. Yeah, so basically it's all it's really saying here is on the falling edge, this retracts which this block of redstone, this piston retracts this block of redstone, which causes this block of redstone, as soon as it moves, it creates 0 ticks to the output. And then with regards to the piston, this will retract, but then it will extend again because the 2 taxi cab distance is then conditions are then met. So it should look exactly the same, right? No, it doesn't look the same, but yeah, that's the reason it's extended is because of that. This block just gets pulled back, and it extends once it's in place. So let's just look at that falling edge again. So we should see it retracting and then extending. Right. Doesn't look to be. It does kind of seem. You know what? I have a feeling it is 0.5 ticks. I don't know why. It's just that super snappiness of that redstone block. If you look at the bottom piston on the falling edge, I don't think it doesn't seem like that's happening that quickly. And this is the thing you've got to realise with the 0 tick stuff. It's only to do with the input and the output. The stuff that's actually going on here is not that quick. But yeah, alright, thanks for watching.